Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Mess. So, Tarek, somehow the entire month of November is over. We've eaten all the turkey, had all the mashed potatoes and stuffing, and had all the cocktails, and we're very quickly moving into December. That means it's time to do the monthly retro gaming emulation news roundup, giving you bite-sized pieces, turkey in this instance, of all the videos I did in the month of November, catching you up on all of the emulation news that came across my desk. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. And just so you know, as usual, the MAME video is going to be its own separate thing, but I will specify one update that we're going to be getting shortly. But as far as emulation, N64 had a big month this month, and honestly it's been having a big month all across the board, because Analog 3D is in my hands and I will have a review on that shortly, but I am taking my time because obviously I was not in the round of YouTubers that got review units, so since the initial reviews are already out, I can take all the time I want to come up with the most esoteric tests out there. But on the software emulation side of things, Rosalie's Mupin GUI got a big meaty update, and honestly having better N64 software emulation goes hand in hand with having FPGA consoles, because honestly the only thing I ever care about is these games are kept alive for whoever wants to play them, and they're made to play as good as they possibly can. My favorite example in the video that I did maybe like 2.5 weeks ago was Cruisin' Exotica. With all of the internal rendering resolution bumps with the better textures and performance, this gets really close to looking like the actual arcade release of Cruisin' Exotica. And considering that game still doesn't emulate perfectly in MAME, this is about as pretty of an experience as you're going to get out of Exotica unless you buy an original arcade PCB or find a cabinet out there in the world. And even though I love N64 and the games on it, I can definitely still admit that some of the games are definitely a blurry mess, and it looks like Vaseline's been smeared all over the screen. And even with scalers like the RetroTink 4K Unreal hardware, even like Mr. FPGA and Analog 3D, there's nothing that really can be done to make those internal render textures look any better without software emulation. And it's one of those things, my nephews absolutely love Nintendo games, and they love playing Smash Brothers, but if I gave them an N64, an Analog 3D, or Mr. FPGA and said, hey, you've never played this Smash before, they're just not going to be that into it. But if I gave them this version on Rosalie's Mupin GUI, they would definitely think that the graphics were a little bit kitschy, but otherwise it would feel like a modern release, and that really is what matters. And honestly, again, N64 is just having a resurgence in 2025 with 2 different emulators updating, as well as a bunch of different FPGA consoles coming down the line. And as far as emulation is concerned, it's never been a better time to do it than now, because we have stuff like the 8-bit Do controller out on the market. Even if it isn't perfect on the analog, it gets really close. You have stuff like the Brawler 64 and even Mr. Add-ons with Reflex Adapt. You can plug in an original N64 controller with an adapter to your PC and just play, because you definitely want that button layout. It is one of the most important things of actually enjoying an N64 game. So honestly, I'm just impressed just how big of a month November was for Nintendo 64. It's a console that everyone knows, loves, and remembers, but for some reason it basically blew up in November, and I for one am happy to see that. Now moving over to the one MAME update you're going to get once 2.8.3 is out. Maybe it's already out, we'll have to wait and see when I publish this video. Model 2 got a ton of actual texture filtering improvements and a lot of graphical improvements as well. And that really has been kind of the story of 2025 for MAME. Hyper Neo Geo 64 emulation improved, as did Model 2, but definitely Model 2 is the one that excites a lot more people. This is what it used to look like just a month ago, and this is the update you're going to be getting either shortly or already have, and it definitely makes a night and day difference. And I would say, very unscientifically, it feels like Model 2 is like 80 to 85% complete on MAME, and hopefully by this time next year I'll be able to say that MAME is 100% buttoned up, and you can play any game you want from start to finish, and it is absolutely exceptional. Because this is what you were playing last month, and this is what you're already playing or will be playing this month when the new version of MAME comes out. And trust me, I don't usually know when that is happening whatsoever. It's usually the last Friday in the month, but sometimes it comes out early, sometimes it comes out late, sometimes it even skips a month depending if they have a lot of big updates coming. So if it's already out, I will leave a link in the description below so you can find it, and if it isn't already out, that link won't be there, and you'll know that it hasn't released as of you actually watching this video, because it's been a very tricky month of me getting all these updates made, because of course I am in Chicago, which is in the US, which means it is Thanksgiving weekend here, and my wife has Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday off, as do I, so definitely trying to not make as many videos as I would want to, just because I do need to actually relax as well. but honestly Model 2 getting these improvements is massive, and Motor Raid, an absolutely underrated Road Rash style arcade game, is another one that's seen a bunch of new improvements. And if you're wondering how I get these, I basically just use artifacts from the GitHub builds, that way I can actually test these versions in advance. I don't recommend you do it unless you really want to test stuff. Just wait for the mainline MAME to come out at MAME Dev's website, that way you know you're getting everything, it's stable, tested, and ready to play. Let's go into a soundtrack sample for Model 2, because the sound's improved as well, but interestingly, at least in Sega Rally, there aren't any real sound effects, which is kind of something I hope to see fixed up in next month's update.
Very long, easy right. Long, easy right, maybe. Very long, easy left. Checkpoint. Medium left. Whoa. Medium left, maybe.
So there may be no engine sound effects in Sega Rally on Model 2, there's definitely engine sound effects on Burnout on PlayStation 2, and the reason I'm using that as a segue is because PCSX2 had a big update this month as well, and now we have the status knowing that only 4 games at retail will not run on the emulator. The emulator basically has 99.9x% compatibility with the entirety of the PlayStation 2 library. That is North America, that is PAL, that is Japan. Anywhere that PlayStation 2 games came out, they all work outside of 4 individual titles, and that is a gigantic milestone to say the least. This is preservation at its finest. I know I always talk about software emulation from a technical standpoint, showing you the improvements, showing you what's updated, and basically telling you whether or not you should grab that update. But the reality is all of this is incredible preservation as well, because unless you own a full set of PlayStation 2 games, and that's a full set from all of the regions they've released in, these games would be lost to time if you couldn't actually emulate them, or on the hardware side of things, modders didn't get files booting up on real PlayStation 2 hardware. This keeps these games alive, it keeps the PlayStation 2 dream alive, it allows people to play games they've never played before, and I absolutely do love that about emulation in general. And the idea that they've gotten PCSX2 to this level of compatibility, considering how absolutely massive the PlayStation 2 library is, must have been tens of thousands of hours in development time to get to this point in time. And even though you'll see here the list of games that don't work is more than 4, technically it's Driver 3, Final Fantasy, as well as Marvel Nemesis and World Series Baseball 2K3, because a lot of these have duplicate entries depending on their release, especially on the Final Fantasy side of things. So that is the reality of PlayStation 2 emulation in November 2025. It feels basically buttoned up because only 4 games will not work. Now that does not mean that you won't see bugs and glitches and other issues in other PlayStation 2 titles that you want to try to emulate. It just means you can get into game, you can play them, and you should be able to complete each and every one of them. But I'm sure PCSX2 still has years of updates to come. I'm going to be 100% there for them, updating you every step along the way. And moving over to MelonDS, that also got a very meaty update in the month of November, and the real kind of headline on that is DSi performance and support has been greatly expanded. Because if you ever tried DSi titles in MelonDS before, they would not run at full speed, and that was just down to a digital signal processor chip for the DSi that wasn't emulating correctly. It didn't do a whole lot, but if it wasn't functioning correctly, it would absolutely just drag down the speed of the emulation entirely to the point in time where none of these games would be playable. Now, of course, some of the DSi games are going to require stuff like cameras or microphones, and you'll have to deal with that, but now you get full speed emulation of stuff like that, and that is what really matters. And even though this is the big update for MelonDS in the month of November, there was a lot of other fun updates as well, including some of the internal rendering resolution scaling. This is the last video that I talked about on MelonDS, maybe in like late spring to early summer, and if you scale too hard you would get these big visual glitches, almost like analog TV snow on your screen. Now in the most current version of something like MelonDS, you can absolutely dial up that resolution to your heart's content, and you aren't going to get glitches anymore. So not only did this update bring you something like DSi support, it brought you better support for those resolution bumps, and it also improved the audio basically across the entirety of the emulation experience, which is my very cheap segue into the second soundtrack sample. 45 seconds and I'll be right back with more. I mean, MelonDS has never sounded better, it's never performed better, it's never had better DSI support, and it's never had better graphical enhancements than it does in this version. So if you haven't updated MelonDS for a while, trust me, run, don't walk to their website. I will leave a link in the description below and update, because you're absolutely going to want to have this one. Now popping back over to N64 on a different emulator, this is Gopher 64, and it also saw a new improvement and update this month. Gopher is basically kind of feeling like an amalgamation of Ari's, maybe the most cycle accurate emulator for N64 out there, as well as MAME 64, the one that is designed to give you enhancement. It has a really graphical user interface that does work well, and I honestly think it's great to have more than one emulator out in the market so that people can basically take their pick as to how they want to play it. Gopher 64, Rosalie's MAME GUI, something like Ari's, they all have their time and their place, and the more options are better for everyone in the retro gaming community, and that's something I always advocate for. All of these developments help and aid one another. Basically, one emulator might do something slightly better than the other one. You might jump between all three emulators out there if you just want to play a game and you realize it works better on something like Gopher than any other option. That is something that really just does help keep all these games alive, and it makes them playable into the future. And I hope to see even more N64 emulation come to the market. And again, we have the Mod Retro M64 FPGA console in development as well, and that's great too. The more options, the better. The more ways to play these games, the better. The more ways to basically have the experience you want. It's just always better across the board. Well, leave me a comment down below and you tell me, what is your N64 emulator of choice? I would be curious. For the most part, if I just want the original experience, I'm going to use Ari's, and if I want an enhanced experience, I kind of pop between Gopher as well as MAME, just to kind of get whatever I want out of the situation. Because you can just basically do whatever you want with N64 these days, with all of the modders and ROM hackers out there making new experiences, some of which only work in emulation and not on real hardware because they push the hardware emulation beyond what the system can actually do. You have almost an unlimited amount of new N64 games to play, and that definitely is something that always makes me happy when it comes to N64 emulation. But if I had to pick one update from the month of November, and you know I am very arcade oriented, it would have to be that Model 2 got a lot of texture fixes, and Model 2 on the Sega side of things is getting so much better in MAME. Will you tell me down below of all the updates I showed you this month and talked about in this video, which one would be your favorite, because I'm curious. And tell me down below what you hope happens in emulation for the month of December as well. For me personally, I know it's not going to happen, fighting Bujutsu running faster in MAME. But I'll see you guys next time. Hope you had a good Thanksgiving. Bye bye.